I'm here to talk about success and what it means, and especially in the nonprofit sector. We all know what success is, right? I mean, to most Americans, success is about money, period. Bottom line is, the more money you have, the more successful you are, or considered more successful. The more money your organization or your business makes, the more successful you're considered. But in the nonprofit sector, it's a very different world than the social sector. And the way in which we define success is very, very important to how we do our jobs and what our programs become. So I'm here to talk about that. Success in the nonprofit sector is often self-defined. So housing advocates will talk about the number of units, regardless of how the people living in those units are living, whether they're thriving or not. In the healthcare sector, thanks to health reform, everything has been redefined as the percentage of people with health insurance, not whether people are healthy or not. And in public education, success is defined by how many people graduate from high school, not whether that diploma is actually meaningful. So with social sector organizations, our ability to define success has determined that how we define our success oftentimes would mean that a person could be unhealthy, living in fear all the time, and be part of generational poverty and still be successful according to the model of the nonprofit sector. So what I'm here to talk about is about why that's the wrong way in which we look at things. I was at a conference in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, and the public health commissioner for Seattle was there. And he gave a lecture which included a lot of different maps, and the maps were defined by the gradation of the colors on it that indicated certain things about neighborhoods. So we put up one that was about diabetes, and there were certain sections of the city that were darker than others, meaning that there was a higher preponderance of diabetes in those areas. And then you put up another map, and it was obesity, and it was like the same map, the same exact delineation. And you can make that connection, right? It's diabetes, obesity, they're very, very connected. But then you put one up about violence, and it was the same map. Put up one about school failure, it was the same map. HIV, the same map, all the same map. And finally, he concluded by saying, I could have 1,000 maps up here, all defining what's the problem in Seattle, and they would all be the same map. So he finally decided that if he just had one map without a label on it, that kind of defined everything about Seattle. And he's absolutely right. The reality is all these factors are the same. They're all the reality of what it's like to be in inner city America and poor communities. And if we're going to change the trajectory of the people that live in those neighborhoods, we have to consider them all as one kind of thing. So what I'm going to do now is tell you a story about my nonprofit organization, the Codman Square Health Center, and what I've been doing for the last 36 years since I helped co-found it back in the 1970s. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson, and then I'm going to go into how we have defined success differently and why we're doing the things that we're doing, and why I think it's really important that all nonprofit organizations, all social sector organizations, start thinking differently about how they define success. So here we are, Dorchester, Massachusetts. It's just the other end of the red line, for those of you who don't know. It's the largest section of the city of Boston. It's the most diverse. For those of you who don't know Boston, think Brooklyn. It's like Brooklyn. It's big, it's diverse, and it's the largest section of the city. Codman Square is right in the middle of that. It's the actual center of it. And it was founded, the Dorchester area was founded before Boston in 1630. And from 1630 up until 1870, when Dorchester was annexed to the city of Boston, it was a sleepy little farming community. In 1870, the city of Boston was burgeoning, large numbers of immigrants coming in. And so Dorchester was annexed to the city of Boston. And over the next 50 years, it became a large section when population went from 5,000 to 200,000 in a very short period of time. And Washington Street, which is this main street that you're looking at, was the dividing line. People segregated themselves. Jews to the western side of Codman Square, and Catholics, mainly Irish Catholics, on the east side of Codman Square. And that was the way it was from 1920 up until World War II, when demographic shifts started occurring all over the place. So we wound up with African Americans moving in after World War II to take jobs in the northern cities, and the Jews leaving the western part of Codman Square and being replaced by the African Americans. But at the same time, the city of Boston's population was dropping like a stone. There were 800,000 people in Boston in 1950, but by 1975 it had dropped to about 550,000. That's a huge drop. So what you wind up with is a couple of things happening. One is the people that were living there, moving in, were more impoverished than the people leaving. The middle class was leaving in droves. And the second thing that was happening is there's a lot more housing than there needed to be. So what you start seeing here in some of these slides is the whole-scale abandonment of the commercial district, which became kind of meaningless as all these malls were being built, and only poor people moving into the Codman Square community. So you see these abandoned buildings, businesses going out, and people started, when they couldn't sell their house at any price, people would either leave them and they would be burned by kids on weekends, or they would burn them themselves for the insurance money. So what you see in Codman Square by the mid-1970s is tremendous amount of abandonment, fires at a rate of 1 per day in the mid-1970s. There were over 350 house fires a year in the mid-1970s. So you see these tremendous disinvestment in our community. Also, socially, tremendous amounts of social pathology. Here's, in 1974, busing started, and all hell broke loose because Codman Square by that time was not a religious breakdown between the two sides. It was a racial, so it was black people on the west and white people on the east. So you wind up with racial warfare breaking out, especially after busing started in 1974. We have these great headlines from the Globe at the time, Dorchester Badlands. And the other social pathology was in all sorts of other things, including infant mortality, where the infant mortality rate went up to third world rates of 26.4, and our area was labeled the death zone. So where do you go? Where does a person go from there? Where does a community organizer go? I dropped out of college in 1972 and got married and moved into Codman Square. I started going to community meetings, and at one of those community meetings, it was disclosed that the old Codman Square Library was going to be abandoned by the city of Boston, and the neighborhood freaked out. They were, what do we do about this? How do we save this building? Any building that became abandoned burned. So our goal was to try to do something to make sure that that building was saved. So one of the things we decided was because the new people, especially African Americans moving into the neighborhood, had no source of health care outside of the emergency room of hospitals, and people knew about these health centers that were being created all around the country that actually started in Dorchester, the idea was, let's take the old library and turn it into a community health center. So the goal at the time for starting a health center was save an important building, provide badly needed medical services, and most important, to give people in the neighborhood a reason to hope for the future. So I had a big mouth then, probably now too, and I was appointed the chairman of the committee to start a health center at age 20. That's me in the middle with the funny pants. And 4 years later, we had our dedication. The guy with the thing in his mouth is former Mayor Kevin White. Success, right? We had a success. We had opened up a health center. We were providing medical services. Something was going on. Saved that building. And this is a later picture, but we saved the building. But the reality was that our real goal of the Codman Square Health Center was not to provide medical services, but to turn around the community. What does a health center do? What does healthcare do about disinvestment, crime, school failure, teen pregnancy, all of the things that affect low-income communities? And as a result of that, we decided that we needed to go in a completely different direction, although saving, of course, our healthcare services, which is our bread and butter, by creating programs to deal with the problems beyond medical care. We started organizing the community around crime, started sending out essentially secular evangelists out into the community to organize crime watches and block watches to deal with it, to camping out at parks to drive the drug dealers out. And started getting some great publicity out of it, which resulted in more investment in Codman Square that resulted in the turnaround, the gradual turnaround of the community. So overall, we were making some strides by creating these programs. We also did partnerships with another local health center, the Dorchester House, around increasing the number of financial literacy programs available, earned income tax credit clinics. We've partnered with family to create programs within the public schools and add farmers markets and that type of thing. Anti-violence activities. We created a fitness center, a teaching kitchen, all sorts of different things to try to make a difference in our community. Here's our fitness center in collaboration with HealthWorks for Women. And And we did a lot of work, but the problem was that we realized that even with those programs, we're only reaching people who wanted to be saved, and we weren't making a difference in terms of how are we going to transform our community for the future? How are we going to change the cycle of poverty that affects so many people in low-income communities? So we started looking at it from a medical perspective. What is the real disease? And the real disease is not diabetes. It's not obesity, it's not teen pregnancy. Those are all symptoms of the greater disease, which is poverty. And the healthcare system can do very little as a medical clinic operation in terms of dealing with all of these problems, which are really symptoms of the greater disease of poverty. So as a result of that, I'm going to talk to you about the new direction for the Codman Square Health Center over the past 10 years, which is that we've decided that the most important thing that any community organization working in a low-income community could do is focus its attention on dealing with poverty, on changing the trajectory of, especially of the children in that community. And we've decided in 2 different ways. So, model number 1, create a charter school. 10 years ago, we decided that because in Boston, the way in which we had a wonderful Boston Latin School student here who was playing the music, but in reality, if you don't get into one of the 3 examination schools, the Boston Foundation indicated that the chances of you graduating from college, if you're a 9th grader, is 7.5%. So we talk about, how do we need more black we need more black doctors, and we need more black teachers and all that. If you can't graduate from college, you're not going to have them. So what we decided to do is we're going to increase that number by creating a charter school. So it's kind of one of those models you've heard of before. We create a second family. We do, if anybody's read Outliers, knows that the 10,000-hour rule, you do more 6-day-a-week education. And the purpose of that is to make sure that there's a supportive second family that helps people get through high school and be prepared to do well in college. We don't let them out the door unless they're ready for college. And success has been redefined for that school as graduating from college, not graduating from high school. And that's because it's very, very significant. We have a full-time staff person who does nothing except follow alums to make sure that they can make it through. The result of that is tremendous success. Every single graduate has been accepted to a 4-year college, and the bottom line on it is 2 things. One is they all participate in internships within the health center. All the students participated. 2 weeks in the junior year, 2 weeks in the senior year. Purpose for that? 18% of the jobs in Boston are in healthcare. 18%. They generally pay pretty good middle-class wages. If you want to get out of poverty and leapfrog into the middle class, there's no quicker way in Boston than becoming a health professional. So, introducing that, the great opportunity of being inside of a health center, being actually the only school located in a health center in America, is that you can create that opportunity for people to do it. The net result of it is 73% of our graduates are either in college or have graduated from college, about 10 times what the Boston rate is. So here's some pictures of our school. Students, we just got permission to go to 145 students. Here's social justice is a major part of the curriculum. As is exercise. It's an Alvin Ailey dance program that all the students participate in, even ones that don't look like they're dancers. And here's our internship program in the laboratory, internal medicine, more laboratory. So that's an important element, and it's something that everybody can do. Why? Because there's 1,200 community health centers in America, and there's charter schools in every state. Codman Square shouldn't be the only one doing this. Second model. We decided to transform our actual model of delivery of care. Now, we all probably go to doctors, or at least occasionally go to doctors, and when you go to a doctor, you sit down for your 10 minutes with the doc, and the doc says, I want you to exercise more, and I want you to eat better food. And you say, okay, doc. Then 6 months later, you meet the doc again. He says, I want you to eat better food and exercise more. And you say, yeah, I'm right on it, doc. I'll do it. Obviously, this 10-minute thing is just a silly way of providing health care. And so we decided a few years ago that we were going to try to transform the model to give more time and more availability to connect our patients to more people within the healthcare system by going to group visits. And what we found was we offer the patients, you can go to individual visits or you can do groups, and about half of them decide to do groups. They go into these groups, and we decided to do it with a particular chronic disease, which I won't talk about, and also with pregnant women. Now, with pregnant women, we decided to pull everybody together in the same gestational age, so they're all going to deliver around the same time. And Codman Square has about 400 women a year who deliver babies, so it's a significant number. And then they meet for 2 to 3 hours per period of time when pregnant women do it. So I think it's monthly or semi-monthly or whatever. But during that 3-hour period, they're able to connect with people who can teach them how to cook and people who can teach them what it's going to be like to deliver. But most important, they connect to the other people that they're going to these group visits with. And what we found is not only a 100% satisfaction rate, but also that the women love it, because they connect to other women who are going through the same thing, and then they form like child play groups with the other women. They help each other out when they're delivering their babies. And so what happens with that is just, kind of amazing social connectedness through the healthcare system that allows for people to get the social supports that are necessary for them to be able to do the right thing. If somebody else is helping you eat good food, you might actually do it. Through the success of that, one of our docs got this idea that, geez, this is crazy to end at a pregnancy. We should be doing this more. We should be doing this with the kids that are born. So last December, we decided that we were going to reorient the whole thing in 2 ways. One was we're going to start a step process. So you go from the pregnancy group into the infants group, and from the infants group into the toddlers group, and from the toddlers group into the preschoolers group. And the second thing we decided to do was connect it overtly to education. So an early childhood educator is part of this model. And the early childhood educator is able to teach the women, mainly women, some men, about how to best prepare your kid to enter school. Because my wife's a Boston public school teacher, and she tells me every year about kids that enter school not knowing their numbers, their letters, their colors, and they're so far behind that in all likelihood they will be behind forever. It's cumulative. Education's cumulative. Through this kind of program, we're able to use the medical model in a kind of Harlem Children's Zone kind of way of connecting people from pregnancy, when it's so important the baby's brain is being developed up to school age, and we're able to make that kind of connection, and we're able to also connect women to understanding the Boston Public School bureaucracy. So that's so important, because anybody that's been a Boston Public School parent, as I have, knows that the Boston Public School is an amazing, horrible bureaucracy, and trying to get a good education for your kid requires a lot of work and a lot of knowledge, which most poor women don't have. So we're doing that as well, teaching politics to the women. So I just want to finish up by saying, Codman Square Health Center, we're a medical facility, absolutely. 100,000 visits a year, 20,000 annual patients. But what we do is we use the connection for healthcare as a door opening to the rest of the system that could be helpful. We have programs, all sorts of different programs, financial literacy, fitness, all those things that, in addition to medical services. We've recognized that education is the way to eliminate cyclical poverty. We add partnerships for resources, and we have redefined success. Our goal is to create a community in which residents thrive and have access to many opportunities to connect the silos of services and opportunities that inhibit success. And most important, to be a model for other community health centers, 1,200 around the country, who all have the capacity to do what we're doing, and hopefully it'll catch on, and that's why I'm here. So I have some pictures of Codman Square today. It's a different community. It's on the way to success, but true success will really be when a child born in Codman Square knows, or the parents know, that that child is on a trajectory to success. Thank you.